Hey, Comics Cubers, our guest today is Pulitzer Prize nominee for the Washington Post article Searching for Maura, Renren Galeno. She's also up for the National Book Awards for the Philippines for her graphic novel Sawala, Nothing to Lose, which is about a chicken who is way more than it seems. If you like the Comics Cube, please do consider donating to our Patreon. The link is down below. Here's Renren Galeno. Pulitzer Prize nominee and National Book Award nominee. How are you?
Doing well, doing okay.
Uh, Based in Davao, so for everybody watching this who is not from the Philippines, Davao, I live in Manila, Renren lives in Davao, and those are not near each other at all. They are the two of the biggest cities in the Philippines, but they are on completely different islands. You were nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for the work Searching for Maura, which I believe everyone reading it would pronounce Mora. So which one is it actually? It's Maura, right?
We do say Maura.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we would say Maura. But before we start, I ask everyone the same question, which is why do you love comics?
Hmm. I feel like I wish I had something more profound to say, but I just really like drawing. So I like drawing. I like looking at other people's drawings. I love watching other people draw. And I love kind of figuring out how people kind of process their style, how they kind of look at the world through their style. And I feel like comics is kind of just one way to just a showcase of that. So it's I just love looking at drawings and I love making drawings. So it just kind of makes sense somehow. The comics are like I'm just gonna keep saying the word drawing until it doesn't make sense anymore. But comics is just a bunch of drawings put together and designed to tell a story. And I feel like there's something really wonderful about that because everyone can draw. Everyone can put two sequential images together. And I really like that about comics.
Well, you're right, everyone can draw, but I think it does a disservice to say everyone can draw on the same level as you, or a bunch of others we
Well,
could name.
yeah, but I feel like everyone has like that opportunity to kind of process the world around them through comics. And that's one of the first things children tend to do. They
Hmm.
like drawing things, they like drawing what they see. It might not be the most legible yet, but
Yeah.
it's a wonderful kind of form of expression when you see like a child drawing. And I feel like making comics is kind of like an extension of that. Like you never really lose the urge to portray something that you see and kind of you just make that process longer by making a comic, I think.
Do you remember the first comic that you fell in love with as a reader?
As a reader, well, there were the Archie comics are available at the checkout line in the grocery store. So it was Archie and Witch, and then the K-Zone comics also inside the
Which
K-Zone.
which is WYTCH, right? No, mali ba?
WITCH.
WITCH. Am I thinking of
Yeah.
Winx? No.
Um, Winx came after Witch.
I'm
Witch was
showing my
the
age.
yeah, but Witch was I believe it was an Italian comic.
Hmm.
The name of the author escapes me right now, but those were the comics that were like available at the grocery
Yeah.
store. So if I did well in school, I could buy one. So it was either an Archie comic or like a Witch comic. and back then you would have to, of course, buy them in chronological order, but I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So um, I guess that's also one of the things that kind of prompted me to comics because I suppose I had to like figure out what happened in between.
No, that's great. No,
So
yeah, that's a great
yeah.
thing about comics. Even when I was buying back then, just oh my God, I missed an issue. What happened in between, right?
Yeah,
Um,
so I would make fan fiction, right? You'd like draw the in-betweens so they would kind of make sense. But yeah, Archie and Witch were the first two.
I do enjoy that as much as I'm showing my age and showing my ignorance of which, that Archie cuts across so many decades that I feel like you and I
Yeah.
can talk about which Archie character you love the most, etc. So just give me a one word answer
Oh,
for that one.
oh, Jughead.
Yeah, I thought
It's the hat.
my answer was also Jughead, but I was going to say it's the burgers. um, so that interests me when you say that you would make fan fiction to fill in the blanks that you missed, because I have said in the 4 years of running this channel that I think I have figured out the difference between creators and fans, or specifically between writers and fans. Where fans see plot holes, writers see opportunities.
Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, of course there would probably be some plot holes out there that you could attribute to like maybe lazy writing or a time constraint, but you can kind of have fun with it.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in Tumblr. And one of the things that I kind of saw happen a lot was if they did see like a plot hole in like a big movie franchise or um in a book, a lot of the times there would be like these really long paragraphs posted on Tumblr about, but I know that it's attributed to being a plot hole, but what if XYZ? And that was really interesting. And also I think a very fun writing exercise. I think of all of fan fiction as like this fun
Yeah.
writing exercise. Yeah.
Yeah. And so would you say that was what started your love of making comics?
Mm, actually, my parents have this joke that I've been drawing since I was like out the womb. And so I think that yeah, comics is like an extension of that. But I've been drawing since forever. And my parents actually kept throughout all of our moves, my parents kept boxes and boxes of like my ballpoint pen drawings on newsprint,
Mhm.
and they could like look at one and say what age I was.
Wow.
And I also have this vandalized storybook that I don't remember drawing on, but they kept it because those were my very first drawings. So yes, I love drawing very much. And when I found comics, it was like a good match.
Okay. When I look at your work, when I look at the way you draw, I don't think that I would think Archie or Witch. I'm not sure what I would think actually. So would can you say which artists mostly influenced your specific style of drawing? It's
I
a
was really
little
into manga.
okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So manga and honestly the pen work was really interesting to me. I loved just looking at the black and white and kind of what artists can do with just those two tones, the most extreme and the lightest possible
Yeah.
tone. I also oh today is October 3rd, and that's Full Metal Alchemist Day. So I would be remiss to not mention Full Metal Alchemist. I think that's my all-time favorite manga. And I kind of came back to comics when a friend of mine showed me our college library had the actual books for Akira.
Oh yeah.
So when I held that Like I did watch it as like I did read it as like this edgy teenage girl who wanted to get into anime, but I didn't fully understand it. So when I read it again as someone older, I really got to appreciate the story and just the art style because it's so dense but also so legible. And I really like that about Akira in particular. I think because the backgrounds are still rendered,
Yeah.
the backgrounds are always rendered or at least rendered most of the time. So I really like that art style, kind of minimal shading almost. So yeah, I feel like my style derives from manga, but particularly Akira, just because it's so dense.
I do think that when you take a look at black and white comics, looking at manga is more useful if you want to see like detailed backgrounds and rendering, because I think black and white comics, from the Western point of view, they tend to be more, whatever style they use for the people is also the style they use for the backgrounds, right? But whereas manga, for example, you can have really cartoony people but really detailed backgrounds. I thought that was interesting, and I think I see that in your work. Okay. I'm looking also at your portfolio on your website, and I think even from the very beginning, no, if I take a look at, that's not it. There it is. If I take a look at your first published work back in 2020, which kind of looks like it was it done for school from a ragged.
Which one? I don't think I have anything from school for
Okay,
in my portfolio, but
okay,
yeah, the
Roma
earlier
ragged.
stuff.
Um,
Oh, Ramaragit. That was um a professor of mine asked me to contribute to
okay.
that journal.
I do feel like you've always been kind of inclined to create more politically infused stuff. Would you say that's
Yeah.
fair? Okay.
Yeah. A
How
little bit,
important is
but
that to you? Yeah.
um I know that well, I feel that through my work I want it to be approachable from every kind of every political leaning. So when you kind of I feel like comics can also do that. It feels like it's how do I say this? It
Accessible.
feels yes, accessible, or maybe it's a simple medium to look at and understand. So I feel like it's a good way to kind of express my political leanings. I live in Davao City, so um,
I'll let
getting to
everyone watching
infuse.
this Google what that means.
Okay, yeah, I live in Davao City, so it's a little. I would say it's a little toned down, and it's kind of this is a it's
It's just hitting me that this was
um
in 2020.
yes
2020 in Davao City. Okay.
um yeah so yeah it's they are kind of there's always like a political aspect to most of my works, but they are a little bit more buried under there. And my hope is that through the comic and with enough context and with enough pointing subtly that the reader would appreciate and kind of uh, look at that point of view or they kind of arrive at that uh, conclusion, or if they arrive at that message, hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't know, I've never really discussed the political stuff in my work, but yeah, that has always been um, important, and I feel like it's at the center of a lot of my stories.
Yeah, I will point out Roma Ragged is free to read on your website, which I'll
Yes.
put down a link for below this video. Talk to me about your participation in 10 Years to Save the World, the anthology about climate change.
10 years was 2021.
Yeah.
I think that project was in 2021, and
Now
I
we have
think I
seven
was
years to
actually
save the
kind of
world.
like a Yes. That was in I was actually kind of like a last minute addition, so that comic was made in like a month. And we were supposed to make something that's kind of highlights a particular issue related to climate change. And I was kind of rushing. So I thought of they already showed me what the other people have chosen. So
Mhm.
it was like slim pickings. But I chose something related to, at the time, I'm really embarrassed to say this, I chose the word overpopulation.
Okay.
So I put that down, and then I realized eventually that through research that no, we are not exactly overpopulated. Our world has the resources for us. It's just allotment of those resources, and everyone has the right to reproduce and to create or to birth children into a functioning world. And I scrapped a comic after 2 weeks and wrote that one
Okay.
instead. But uh yeah, it was just mostly kind of built on, I suppose, my own anxieties on
Yeah.
bringing children into the world and kind of putting yourself in the shoes of this expectant mother who kind of struggles to see what the future could hold for her kid. But the mom in the story is actually still pretty hopeful, and yeah, she's just kind of imagining what the world would look like. And I have a lot of when I posted this online, there's a lot of like there was a lot of comments saying that it was very negative or like a very negative perspective. But while I respect everyone's reading of my work, I feel like the mom is a bit more positive actually, or
Mhm.
I intended for her to be positive, that she is trying to imagine a world where her child would thrive, even if that is a little bit misguided. So, yeah, also the fantasy elements were fun to draw.
You mentioned that you did it in a month. So do you draw digital or traditional? Because I see a drafting table over there.
Oh, for efficiency, unfortunately, I have to do all of the comics traditionally. Oh, not traditionally, digitally. But if it's character sketches, I like doing it traditionally, or when I'm like building up the the world for a comic, I do
Mhm.
it traditionally just so I can see how I would draw it in that way. And I guess I've kind of subconsciously taught myself to like mimic whatever it looks like traditionally onto um the digital version of the work.
Okay. Um, how did you feel being part of an anthology that had one, a Trece story by Budgetan and Kajabaldissimo, and two, a story with Dead Balagtas?
It was kind of a wild moment. Also, Sir TK and Manix were also there.
Yeah.
So it felt like it felt pretty huge for me. It still does, but at the time it was like I kept telling my mom, "Mom, this is it." And mom,
Like
I'm in an anthology. She's like, she doesn't really understand why I'm so excited, but
I
yeah.
forgot that Kevin and Mannix were both there too. So like that is a laundry list of name creators.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be in that anthology, and being beside those names as well. It was like I thought I was pretty cool for.
Is that did you feel like you'd arrived?
Yeah, so there was also definitely like a lot of pressure to deliver then, but it was super exciting, and yeah, the book is out and everyone's stories were great, and yeah, that was
Who's
a time.
who's your favorite of those four? No, you don't have to answer that.
I can't. It can go on record.
How do you feel? How so? Talk to me about how it came to pass and how it felt when the Washington Post called you up to do searching for Maura.
I say this all the time. I feel like I was getting scammed or someone was playing a trick on me because it felt so it was out of the blue. I feel like it was at the end of a work day. I was cleaning up and I got the email. So I was like, I'll deal with this tomorrow, whoever you are playing a trick on me. And when I read it, I was like, there were no immediate red flags, so I replied, and yeah, we got to work on it. But it felt very surreal to receive that email. Very weird, also.
This is so for the benefit of everyone who's trying to get into the business, trying to get noticed in the business. What would you say? Because you say it's out of the blue, but what would you say is the thing that attracted them to your work? Like
Oh,
what made them contact you?
they did mention 10 years to save the world
Oh,
in the email. So I feel like maybe they saw it because 10 years to save the world, all of the comics are available to read online.
mhm.
So I feel like that was actually how they found me.
Okay,
So yeah,
okay. And searching for Maura is the story of a Filipina in the early 1900s, who went to the States, passed away, and then part of whose brain was taken by the Smithsonian.
yes.
Um, so I'm assuming that when you got the script, was this all new to you?
I knew of the human zoos, but it wasn't too, I didn't know how deep it went. I thought it was like this one-time thing. And or it wasn't this whole sort of, I would say maybe like an industry, or I didn't realize, or maybe I was just really dense prior to it and I didn't put two and two together that it was like probably this product of American colonialism. So it was very sobering to see the research and to receive the images also, because personally, one of the most shocking things to me was finding out that the pictures that I see when I Google a particular indigenous peoples from the Philippines, that they weren't actually taken here.
Mhm.
A lot of them were taken during those fairs, during the world's fairs or those kinds of events. A lot of them were taken professionally in America, in American studios. So I feel like that was the most hard hitting for me personally, as someone who did research as a high schooler on these things and put those pictures in maybe PowerPoint presentations. So yeah.
120 years later, human trafficking in big events is still going on.
Hmm. Unfortunately.
But can you talk to me about the process behind searching for Maura? Like, how did you work together with the authors and in the Washington Post on delivering that particular comic?
We did have we met on Zoom the first time we were introduced, and they explained to me the project that they were doing, and they sent me a script via email and asked me to do the initial thumbnails. And because it's so heavily featured, like the mountains of Suyok, I
Yeah.
kind of felt that it had to be like this um webtoon style vertical scroller,
Mhm.
because that's the way that you can kind of see the mountains the best, I think. And I feel like that's such an important part of the story to kind of root um, Maura and everyone to this particular place. And I feel like that was the beginning of the visual language that we used through that vertical scroller, and everything continued after that. So they gave me a script and a whole bunch of images, and I sent back a first draft, these just a bunch of like really, really long images. Of course, it was in a PDF, but they were just like long strips of images and with the text. And then I sent it back to them. They made adjustments to the script because it was still a developing story, so things changed and they found out more. And yeah, we just emailed each other back and forth.
How many? So how did you feel when it was nominated for a Pulitzer?
Weird. I don't know how to
Because
explain it. It's just
at this point now, you came in your first full published work is in 2020. 2023, you're getting nominated for a Pulitzer. What's happening?
I I don't know. It was very weird and like I feel like I was like constantly pinching myself back then and I still am. Of course it was everyone who was a part of that project really it was an incredible time and just an incredible experience working with everyone. But I was I was alone at home and actually I was actually sick at the time. I was recovering from something. So it felt like a fever dream almost when all of that happened. And when they announced um it, it was actually 3 a.m. here and they were at their office and they gave me like a link to live stream. So I was just like by myself, kind of nursing a weird illness. And then that happened and it was very strange. I was of course very happy, but it's just not really something I expected growing up or expected at all when I got into this. So it's a very welcome thing, of course, but very strange. I don't really understand, or I don't really know how to put it into words. It's a very strange experience.
Congratulations. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you
well
so much.
deserved. Um,
Thank you.
in peak of 2024, I picked up this book. So wala nothing to lose. And it is when I read it, I believe my exact words were, I can't believe that two of the greatest Filipino comics of all time star chickens. Of course, the other one is Elmer by Jerry Elangilan. Um, I read it, and I am before I deep dive into the book. Do you want to give our viewers, an elevator pitch of what So Wala Nothing to Lose is about?
It is about a taxi driver or a breadwinner who encounters this mysterious chicken on the road and he decides to use it for sabong, which is
Rooster fighting.
rooster fighting. And hijinks ensue. Is I'm really bad
That's
at the marketing.
I love how that sounds like a comedy because this is not. Or it's a very dark comedy if it is. What like what happened? Like why how'd you come up with the story?
I like drawing chickens. First of all, and I went to school in Manila for college, and when I went back home, I a lot of my neighbors have chickens. So there was this one neighbor who had a really loud rooster who would crow at like 3 a.m. So it was very eerie and it would actually wake me up. And one of the very first comics I've ever made, just a really short comic, was 7 pages long, and it also featured this like weird, monstrous chicken. And I enjoyed making it so much that I made this. During the pandemic, isabong was a huge thing too.
It was really?
So
Oh,
so I would like see I would see random online sabong live streams on Facebook and it kind of just it kind of started from there.
Okay. Um, but then how did you get to the meat of the story? Like, how did you decide that this is what you were going to tackle? Because there's a whole, without spoiling it, there's a whole statement on the human condition within these pages that people might not expect from a comic book about a chicken. So how did you come up? How did you decide on that specific theme?
I feel like um, when you have people that you love, of course, so it's always a matter of kind of taking care of people that you love and what you're willing to, what absurdity you're like willing to overlook just to keep the people that you love safe. That's all. That's actually also a spoiler. I feel like that's already a spoiler somehow. But yeah, it's subtle political stuff also
It
that
is.
sometimes you make decisions that you personally believe will help yourself or your loved ones, and it's just a matter of kind of I wanted to take that and kind of push it to the extreme. Just what absurdity are you willing to overlook? What kind of weird things are you willing to let into your life if you believe that it can service your loved ones? And I feel like that's at the very center of uh Sawala. Because yeah, it's about the chickens, but it's also like about the family overall.
Yeah. Um, when I read Sawala, Nothing to Lose, I felt like I couldn't really classify the genre of it.
Mhm.
What would you say it is?
When I was trying to classify it for a catalog, it was actually really difficult to piece together, but I feel like horror kind of encapsulates all of it, the supernatural element and the mystery. But I feel like it's also kind of a family drama more than a horror. It just so happens to have horror or supernatural elements in it. But horror is fine, I think.
I think for me, the most impressive thing about the book, because I really like looking at comics and taking a look at techniques and storytelling techniques, etc. The most impressive thing to me about the book, I cannot possibly be the first person who will tell you this, is how many silent sequences you have. Um, there's a lot of talk, technically speaking, about conveying information in as little space as possible, which necessitates the use of a lot of words. In So Wala Nothing to Lose, you take your time to establish things. You repeat shots, you move things around a little bit, and you trust the readers to do the work. Uh, what prompted this very specific type of storytelling approach from you?
This is very silly, but it's actually because I don't know how to write, or I didn't know how to write at the beginning of the process. Or rather, word wise, I wasn't the most confident. So I feel like I had more confidence in my drawings just because I drew a lot. And I actually started from silent comics. So the way that Sawala came to be was I actually had like really specific images in mind. And I noticed that I had a lot of trouble working with a script. Like usually the process would be you write the script maybe and then you start the paneling or the
Mhm.
thumbnailing. But I really struggled with that process. So what I ended up doing was kind of anchoring um, the dialogue, the written stuff onto the images that I knew would be in the comic. And I don't necessarily work that way anymore, but back then I was really struggling trying to figure out what they would say, but I knew what they would look like and I knew the emotions that I wanted to convey. So a lot of my thumbnails are actually just happy faces or sad faces. And then the dialogue would actually come way, way later when I was finished inking,
Hmm.
because I feel like it was like the icing on the cake. And whenever there would be dialogue, I may be biased, of course, because again, I love drawing. So I feel like every time I wrote dialogue, it was always, and this might be a no-brainer. Of course, this is how comics work, but the way that I learned to do it was through this way. Every piece of dialogue had to really service the drawings because, of course, I love the drawings more. And
Yeah.
since a lot of the comics were already, or rather, a lot of the pages were already done without words, I just didn't see the need to add any of the words anymore because I was so attached to the way they looked, maybe. So I feel like it wasn't necessarily like this conscious choice, I guess, to make most of the moments silent. It's just what ended up happening, and I kind of really enjoyed it.
Innovation is bred out of restrictions.
That's true.
That is interesting because now if I'm looking at it, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, you go 7 pages before a single dialogue balloon. So you say that you didn't script this, so but did you at least have an outline?
I did have an outline. They were also mostly drawings. I kind of interchange between the two when I write. Now it's a little bit more streamlined because I feel like I'm more confident with words. But Sawala was my first long comic. So if I didn't know what I wanted to say through writing, I would just draw it out.
Did you have a did your publisher, did Comic Cat, give you a specific page count to stick to?
No,
Oh,
I
so you could
actually
take your
pitched.
time. Okay.
I pitched it to them. It was actually pretty late already. I really wanted to do Sawala as a kind of web comic.
Yeah.
When I was younger, there were a lot of like web comics on LiveJournal, and the way that they would post was just they would post a page every weekend, or a specific day of the week. And I kind of wanted to do that with Sawala. So I made a bunch of pages already, and I kind of wanted to do that format where I just I put them up. So I made like a bunch of kind of backlog pages, but the opportunity presented itself to be in print. And I kind of knew I wanted to be in print since I loved the way Akira felt, and I
Yeah.
loved the way a bunch of manga felt
It's tactile.
in
It's
your
different.
hands.
Yeah.
Hmm. So yeah, when the opportunity presented itself, Sawalat was a third of the way finished already.
Renren, you broke into the business in 2020. In that time, you've been in an anthology with Bojetan, Kadjo Baldissimo, Dead Balagtas, Manik Sabrera, Tarantadong Calbo. You've been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, and you are now nominated for the 42nd National Book Awards. That is amazing.
Thank you. I think it's pretty cool.
So my question is, what is next? Like, what is next?
Hmm, I don't know. I just feel like if I get to do this for a really long time, that's enough.
Can we expect to see you at any events for the remainder of 2024?
Not in Manila. I do have one event in Singapore, the Singapore Writers Festival,
Oh, when's that?
but that's in, I believe, November 10 to 18 or 17.
Okay.
Yeah,
So not
but
Singapore Comics Fest, which is in December. Okay.
no. I am working on Full of Grace, which is my pick-off entry, very long overdue, but I really hope that I can finish it by next year.
Okay. What's it about?
It's about three girls who go on this sacred rite of passage within their religious community, and they realize that their younger sister is more valuable to the community than initially thought. And yeah, hijinks ensue.
This is part of every Renren Galeno pitch.
I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna work on the whole marketing side as
But
well.
imagine if you used it for every single one. It would be great.
Maybe that could be my thing.
And finally, social media. Where can people find you?
I am very creatively named depending on the social media. So it's like Insta ni Renren or Twit ni Renren. It's you can look for it on my portfolio website, which is probably linked down below.
It will be linked down below, but in case anybody's not looking, it is rengaleno.pb.online. Renren, congratulations. Thank you for coming on my show. I feel honored. Congratulations on all of your success in the last 4 years alone. And I hope for more success for you as
Thank you, Duy.
as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.